Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting scheduled for July 19th, 2021. We'll call the meeting to order and ask for the adoption of the agenda, please. Councillor Stravas.
Yes, Your Worship, make the motion that council adopts the agenda as mentioned to, as amended to allow for the opportunity to undertake closed session items prior to the timing of delegations at 5 p.m.
All right, thank you. Amended motion on the table. All in favor? Carried down. Great, thank you. On to item number 3, adoption of the minutes, item 3.1, minutes of the regular meeting of council, June 28, 2021. Mr. Orwa?
Yes, His Worship, the June 28 minutes is before you for consideration.
Right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Bruin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June 28th, 2021 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, no business arising. Number 5, bylaws. There are none. Number 6, action items. Item 6.1, Joint Economic Development Committee, terms of reference review. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, I would like to call upon Ms. Monks to address this with council. I think there are some changes there to the terms of reference, and I believe Ms. Monks has highlighted them in yellow. So just proceed, please.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Monks.
Just click on the other side.
Good afternoon.
The Joint Economic Development Committee consists of representatives from the Town of Taber, MD of Taber, Town of Vauxhall, Taber Chamber of Commerce, and Vauxhall Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. And Vauxhall Chamber of Commerce as voting members. The mandate of JEDC is to facilitate information sharing among those members, as well as the Village of Barnwell, on current strategic initiatives and opportunities in the region that will enhance commercial, industrial, and residential development within the geographic boundaries of the MD of Taber. Taber Council representatives for the committee are currently Councillor Firth and Councillor Bruin. Projects such as the Regional Economic Development Plan and Power Up have originated from this table. Input is provided from various agencies, such as our Regional Economic Development representatives with the Government of Alberta, Southgrow, Community Futures, and Agriculture Financial Services Corporation. There's much value from the brainstorming that occurs in these meetings. Throughout the pandemic, while resorting to electronic meetings, it became apparent that in order to be able to continue to hold meetings with a quorum and effectively run them, some changes would be required to the terms of reference to allow the group some versatility and to alleviate some of the required council representation attendance at meetings. This modified terms of reference was endorsed at the June 24th, 2021 meeting of the JEDC. The requirement has been reduced from 6 voting members to 4, now only needing 1 representative from each of the voting member organization to be present to constitute quorum. Each of the organizations will be taking the terms of reference to their respective boards or councils for approval in order for it to be activated for future meetings. At this time, administration is requesting council endorsement for the revised terms of reference. If there are any questions, I am available to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? None whatsoever. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion, but I just also wanted to endorse these updated terms of reference. It was rather difficult to hold a meeting when it was challenging to meet quorum often, and also some of the other municipalities were concerned about having 2 designates attending one meeting, which can get a little expensive when you're paying per person or per diem when you're attending meetings. So this was endorsed at the JEDC level, and I am prepared to go forward with the motion. I move that council endorses the terms of reference for the Joint Economic Development Committee as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin?
Just question the per diem. So members are paid to attend these meetings?
No, sorry. to clarify, members that are paid by their respective councils to attend the meetings, they were concerned that it was becoming expensive to send two
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Garner, you had a question also? All right, thank you. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Good, thank you. On to item 6.2, Internet for Confederation Park Stage. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, it's worship. So, council had requested administration to look into delivering internet to the Confederation Park to be used for live streaming. That is for the Confest events. And administration has been working around the clock to ensure that that happens. And the time was too short. So we had decided to look for particular vendors out there within Taba who could offer this. And we ended up with two, but only one responded. And I know Mr. Shia has also been working very closely out there with the team. I don't know, do you want to add anything, Mr. Shia?
Mr. Sure.
Yes, so it was a simple job, and PTW can actually get it done right away. $17,404. Don't see any problems with the project. It's just that we have no money, so I guess it's up to council to designate that money.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion at this time. The council awards the internet for Confederation Park Stage to PTW in the amount of $17,404, inclusive of GST, with funds to come from the capital reserves.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Just seems like a lot of money to lay wire out there. So we've got along without it for now. I'm not sure why we had spent this year when everything else is slowing down.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't recall, was this discussed at a council meeting previously? I don't recall council directing administration to look into this.
Mr. Roa.
The request had been made that went to IT with considerations. The first one, believe we wanted to look at getting the fiber from the MD side, and that didn't work well. And they made some proposals there if we could use their tower, and that also didn't work very well. So the next thing was to look for ways and means of getting this one here before the Confest. So at this point, we're just proposing that this is the best that we can offer. And if council decides, then probably we'll proceed with it. If not, then we just end it there and look for other alternatives in the future.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arise? All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, on to item 6.3, Sayaya County, Kenya proposed collaboration requests. Mr. Roa.
Again, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So again, this item is brought back to council as per the direction that we received way back in 2019, following the memorandum of understanding that was signed between the two municipalities. And again, the governor of Siaya County had also reached out to the mayor in the past 1 or 2 months. And I think the mayor did discuss a few things with the governor as well. And then based on that, they made a follow-up with an official letter because we wanted everything to run through the system. And the letter is before you there for consideration as well. And I think there are a number of requests that have been put forward there. And one of the major areas that they were requesting out there, there's the number 2, which is the irrigation. And then number 3, they talked of requested a garbage used truck, if there's any. And then also the exchange visits. And then finally, they were requesting for an official address by the mayor to the Siaya County Assembly. So those are some hefty issues that has to come through council as well. And maybe before we proceed before council discussion, I would hand over the mayor, probably might provide some highlights on their discussion with the governor.
All right, sure, absolutely. And yeah, so it was just a follow-up phone call to, we had missed each other for quite some time, over a year, actually. And so it was just a follow-up call that this came up on behalf of the governor's ask, and did formally put this in the form of a letter as well. And I don't know that it actually indicates this accurately in his letter, but I believe Mr. Owa can confirm this, but whatever we were able to do, if anything, they were offering to pay for whatever fees would be involved to transport the said items to their locations. Is that correct, Mr. Owa?
Yes, I can confirm to that. So what we made sure and we let them know is that this will be at no cost to the taxpayers from Tabor. Now, if council decides to give them any used garbage truck, it's upon them to make sure that they shoulder the cost burden. That is, it's a huge thing, and talking to my co-CEO, that thing has to be broken down into different parts for it to fit into a container. So all the costs associated with that, including the shipping and insurance attached to it, will be borne by the Sayre County, and it will not be at any cost to the taxpayer. So that one was confirmed in the phone call.
Yes, that's absolutely, that's accurate as well. And again, the ask came from the governor himself, that these were areas that they could certainly make use of these particular items if we were able to accommodate it in any way, shape, or form, our end. So with that, I guess just open it up to some further discussion and or questions if you like. And beyond that, I think that letter and or the explanation by myself and or Mr. Orwell speaks for itself. Any questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to address with Mr. Orba the cost to the taxpayer of the town of Tabor. I guess if you would donate a used garbage truck to the county, the value of the used garbage truck would be a cost to the taxpayer, would it not, sir?
At this time, we don't even know how much that thing would cost. Otherwise, if I knew, I could have presented before council, but Mr. Shea is working on that to give me what is the current, cost on that truck if, let's say, we were to sell it in the market. So that part, we've not reached there yet.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Orba. Further question I have, I guess, regarding the irrigation. I would like to know what type of irrigation information or services they would require, because as we know, irrigation is vastly different in southern Alberta, I believe, than it would be in Kenya. I'm sure it is, but I'd like to have more information regarding that situation. And we, as a council, of course, have no expertise in irrigation. The MD of Tabor, some of the councilors do. So I'd like to get a little more information on that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orwa. I can too, but if you have something to add, absolutely. But I think if I understand that correctly, Mr. Orwa, they were looking for two parts, potentially. Irrigation from their major size lake that is it within a half a mile roughly of the villages there, et cetera? So as I understand that, roughly a half a mile of pipeline to be able to go to the lake and pump water to the village itself, so they're not having to haul water manually to and from the lake would be a huge benefit to them. And the other aspect was the farming to help in their irrigation format. So the discussions I had with Mr. Owen and Mr. Shearer on that, I believe our simple mainline used equipment would probably suffice, with some form of pump requirement, of course, with whatever elevations might be involved there, and to do both the irrigation for their crops and or the water transfer for their personal use. Councillor Bruin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thinking back to when they came and visited us, it was actually pretty special that they came here. The irrigation part of it, I think, is something that engineers would have to look at. But if we can help a community like this by twinning, I think it's a great idea. We've twinned with another city that has lots. This community here doesn't have a lot, and they're looking for help. I think we should support this as long as it doesn't cost taxpayers.
All right, thank you, Councillor Strauss.
Yes, your worship, but communication between us and them, the expertise and all of that, and working out the details later. They're asking, they're reaching the lake there. I think was Lake Victoria or something, if I remember correctly, and it's a huge lake.
Second largest in the world.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you for that collaboration. But it's just a heartwarming thing to do to help an underdeveloped nation to achieve better and to grow better, because we're in the middle of a huge irrigation area here. We grow, we're a lot of cases we grow a good percentage of the food supplies for Canada and the world here, and it's just good for us to follow this up and proceed with this here.
All right, thank you. Just as Mr. Orwell and I had some discussion on that previous also, there are some fairly modern areas in Africa, in the major centers, of course. But these particular areas are most certainly considered third world countries, right, Mr. Orwell? As far as those particular regions with the villages and the housing, what's the word, the actual type of housing that would be there, Mr. Orwell?
So I think what we're talking about here is we're talking about the villages, not in the urban centers.
That's
because,
correct.
When you fly into Nairobi, Kenya, in Nairobi, it's a different world altogether. But when you move from the city into the rural areas, that is exactly where they're coming from. These are rural counties. Just to add on, I know we've talked about irrigation, we've talked about those garbage trucks, but they're also having exchange visits where they're inviting the Council of Tabor to visit them as well. And then the last one, there's also a request for the mayor to address the assembly at the time of your convenience. And that will be virtual, not going to Kenya, of course.
Yeah, that's right. And if I understood that ask, Mr. Orwell, that was basically more designed around how we govern in our province and in the country here. And so more of a brief presentation and then into a question answer format, I believe is what they were basically suggesting. Is that correct, Mr. Orwell?
I think that is correct, and that's where other things like irrigation, some questions might come up, because I do believe that we can't compare the two technologies out here and over there, but there could be a few questions that might come up from the relevant ministers for clarification before they move ahead with their plans. So those questions, of course, might come up, but more so is on the governance side as well.
Absolutely. That's what Councillor Bruin and Councillor Strauss were alluding to look to assist in whatever capacity we can, ideally at a very reasonable financial rate. And their offer to get that kind of equipment there. And I don't know, it's maybe Councillor Becker's comments about the MD with some of their expertise to get some of that, whether it's video information available to set up something like that kind of a need that they might require. But I believe we had an engineer here from Kenya, correct, that was traveling with them. And so I would believe that they have enough expertise to probably understand, and through their visit here, to see how things worked in the irrigation side anyway, that would be helpful. And I don't know that anybody would have to tend to set that up for them, but I think they'd have to have something to refer to, obviously, through some kind of either lecture material or video material to be able to set that up and Councillor Becker said maybe the MD would be better suited to help us in that regard if they would be willing as well. But I think it would be very beneficial and or appropriate to help with this ask if we can in any capacity, and to help out a third world country in what their reasonable asks seem to be. Any other questions arising? Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, it's the largest tropical lake in the world, but I agree with 100% what you say there, Andy. Mr. Mayor, that I think if we're going to twin with the city, this should be one we should really consider. I think our knowledge here with governance and whatever we can follow up with the irrigation part and stuff like that, I think this is an opportunity we should look at.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to refresh my memory, Mr. Albright, the population of Sayaya County is about 50,000, is that correct?
I think it's more than that now. It's more than 50,000 for sure.
Just another comment, I guess. Tabor and area has been great for helping third world countries through Tango, for example, and they've done some great things over the years, more through the medical field and or construction side. But again, to reiterate, I think there's a great opportunity to help this third world country in these areas, to assist them in that capacity if there's a way we can make this happen in a reasonable fashion, as I said before. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship. At this time, I'd like to put out a motion so that we can go down this road to at least look at some of the things. But just as a reminder, some 8 years ago, when the Alberta government took over, Alberta Health Service took over the ambulances, the town donated 2 ambulances that were refurbished and went to Mexico through through an organization. I forget the name of the club. Not Shriners, no. No, that was the one that was here in town that folded. But anyways, they shipped them to Mexico. So this isn't groundbreaking. I mean, we've done this before, and it's just good. So I'm going to follow through with a motion that Council authorizes administration to investigate a formal twinning relationship between the town of Bondo Municipality in Sayaya County and the town of Tabor, and authorize administration to undertake assessing the extent to which Sayaya County is seeking technical and financial support for irrigation, and authorize administration to determine the process and cost to provide Sayaya County with a used garbage truck.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking in favor of the motion, and I would like to just reiterate what some of my other fellow councillors have said. I believe there's opportunities on both sides, not just for us to help Sayaya County, but also for us to learn from them, especially if an exchange trip is in the works. And I certainly enjoyed when they were here to speak with them and learn more about it. So yes, I would be speaking in favor of that motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Great, thank you. On to item 6.4, whistleblower hotline. Mr. Roa.
Yes, I would like to call upon Ms. Vanham to provide some new statistics out there from MNP, please.
All right, thank you. Ms. Van Ham?
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you, Mr. Orwa. As you can see, this is the quarterly report for the Whistleblower Hotline and Ethics Alert from MMP, and the report itself is attached for your viewing, and it looks like there was one action taken throughout that period on April the 4th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make that motion. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council accepts the statistical report from MNP LLP regarding the whistleblower hotline ethics alert for the period of April the 1st, 2021 to June the 30th, 2021, for information purposes only.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin.
Can I ask where this went? Like it went to the whistleblowers, but have we followed up or why are we doing this?
All right, that for Mr. Owa or Ms. Van Ham?
I suppose it'd probably be to our acting CEOs.
All right, Mr. Owa.
Defer this one to Ms. Van Ham to walk us through the process because the way it flows. Can you proceed, please, Ms. Van Ham?
There was an inquiry in relation to how to report from that particular area that's mentioned on the reporting letter. And then once that happens, then a report goes to our CAOs in this case to have them determine further action. So at this particular one, there was, I believe, just the inquiry as to how to report things if needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions arising? All right, motion on the table. All in favor? Carried now. Great, thank you. Moving on to department reports. If there's any questions, please stop me accordingly. Finance Department report. CAO Department report. Administrative Services Department report. Treatment Facilities report. Public Works Department report. Planning and Economic Development report. HR Department report. Fire Department report. And Recreation Department report. No questions arising. Someone prepared to make that motion. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accepts the department reports for information.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to mayor and council reports. Councillor Garner.
Sorry, nothing new to report.
All right, thank you. Councillor
Mayor.
Chavez.
Yes, your worship, summer is quiet here. I'm happy to announce that the library board is proceeding ahead. They've got a new manager there and things seem to be settling down, but as far as their other meetings, the only other one really that was attended was the Municipal Planning Commission. And in that meeting, I gave a bouquet to our planning staff there, because if you take a look at the statistics that were presented in economic development, we have more than doubled our development permits and building permits. So they've been working hard at moving the town along, and they need some thanks for that.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering. All right, thank you. And for myself, I did attend the St. Mary's graduation celebration, as well as our July 1st celebration events, a couple of the farmers markets as well, a variety of required meetings, administration meetings as well, and several media interviews as well. And that would be my report. Someone prepared to make that motion. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accepts the mayor and councilor reports for information.
Right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.7, standing item council requests. Mr. Owa.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, again, this is an opportunity for council to provide any direction to the administration, or maybe any clarification that you might have, or you might seek for from the administration. And I think we are doing very well with our outstanding items there. You can see they are down to 3. And you can see the first one, I think, will be coming off. It's completed. So we are only remaining with the last two that are still in progress. So at this point, I will turn it over to council if at all there's any direction to provide to the administration.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for administration regarding, in the past number of years, I think we've had some pavement pothole patching work done. Is that being proceeded with this year at all? I have not seen any of that around, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orwa. Mr. Shearer?
So we have done a lot, but because of the heat of the asphalt patcher, we tended to see just the early mornings, things like that. But it will, when it cools off, we'll see more and more use out of it.
All right, Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Shearer. And also, I'd like to have a follow-up question on regarding the request I made at the last meeting regarding a dog poop container at the McDonald's entrance way. You recall, Mr. Shearer?
Yes, actually, we have a number of them already ordered. They're on back order, some of them, so I believe we have about 8 currently on back order, but we did install a number of them at Prairie and Confed and Ken McDonald as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Any other standing item council requests? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I just have a question for administration. I was approached by a concerned citizen. They were concerned about the watering frequency of the trees out at the dog park. They said they frequented the dog park and that they were concerned that the trees were dying because they weren't being watered often enough. They said they were never being watered. I said I would check into it, so I'm asking that question.
All right, thank you.
Well, they are being watered, probably not as frequently as people would like with the current climate. I'll make a special note to our department and make sure that we try to get out there a little bit more.
All right, thank you. Any other standing item council requests? Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to find the street address there. It's beside the LDS Stake Center. We talked earlier about putting pedestrian crossing lights there. And we still haven't gotten there, and I was thinking perhaps that might be something we want to follow up on. And I appreciate Councillor First's comments on the watering of the trees. I noticed that out at the, we camped there a couple weeks ago, and the trees look like they really need some water out there. And Confederation Park as well.
All right, thank you. As far as the pedestrian crossing, that's at 47th Street and 50th, correct? Yes. I do remember that discussion. I don't know that, did we actually have a motion come out of that? Remember there was some discussion on that, but I don't know that we actually had a motion to follow up with that, did we? Okay, so with that, Councillor Bruin, you're prepared to format a motion in that regard? 47th Street and 50th Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the motion that council directs our traffic committee to look into putting a pedestrian crossing at 47th Street and 50th Avenue.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table.
I'm sorry, I should probably say a pedestrian crossing with flashing lights.
All right, fair enough. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, any other standing item council requests? All right. With that, that takes us to the delegation format. So that's not until 5 p.m. So I just have a motion to take 10 minutes and reconvene to move back into closed session rather, and be prepared for our 5 p.m. delegation presentations as well. Councillor Firth?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.